They were pillars of the community, respected and admired by everyone who knew them. Claire Turner, a dedicated sheriff's deputy, and her husband Ryan, a seasoned detective, seemed to have it all, a picture-perfect marriage built on trust and a shared commitment to justice. But behind the badge, Claire was hiding a secret that would shatter their carefully crafted lives and send shockwaves through their small town. What begins as a forbidden affair spirals into a deadly web of lies, betrayal, and desperation. How does someone sworn to uphold the law cross the line into committing an unthinkable crime? How do love, guilt, and fear push a person to the point of no return? This is the story of Claire Turner, a woman who went from protector to perpetrator in the most shocking way imaginable. Before we dive into this chilling case, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Inspector Stan for more tales of betrayal, crime, and the dark truths that lie beneath the surface. Claire Turner was the kind of law enforcement officer people in her small town admired. She carried herself with quiet authority, her uniform always crisp, her demeanor professional. As a sheriff's deputy, she was known for her dedication to the job and the community. Whether it was mentoring younger officers or organizing outreach programs to connect law enforcement with local residents, Claire seemed to embody the very best of what the badge stood for. Her personal life appeared just as perfect. Claire was married to Ryan Turner, a seasoned detective who shared her commitment to justice. Together, they were often described as a power couple, the sort of pair others looked up to, strong, united, and deeply respected. Their life seemed to be one of balance, days spent serving and protecting, and evenings spent as a devoted couple, attending community events, or enjoying quiet moments together. But even in seemingly perfect lives, cracks can form. Claire's world began to shift on the day she met Marcus King. Marcus wasn't like the other inmates in the county jail. He was serving time for nonviolent offenses, a series of fraud schemes, but what set him apart wasn't just his crimes. Marcus was different. He was sharp, charismatic, and had a way of making people feel seen. He wasn't the stereotypical image of a hardened criminal. He spoke about his mistakes with regret but also with an insight that hinted at untapped potential. At first, Claire approached Marcus the same way she approached all her duties, with professionalism and clear boundaries. As part of a rehabilitation program run through the sheriff's office, she was assigned to work with inmates like Marcus, helping them prepare for a second chance at life outside the jail. She offered guidance and structure, believing in the potential for reform. But Marcus had a way of disarming people. Conversations that started out as routine became something deeper. Marcus would talk about his childhood, his struggles, the circumstances that had led him to where he was now. He was vulnerable, but also confident in a way that drew Claire in. For the first time in years, she found herself listening to someone who made her feel appreciated, not just as a deputy or a community leader, but as a person. Claire justified the growing connection to herself. She told herself it was part of her job, helping inmates find a path forward, giving them hope. But deep down, she knew better. The way Marcus looked at her, the way his voice softened when he spoke to her, the way he seemed to understand the weight she carried every day, none of it felt like a professional relationship anymore. As weeks turned into months, the boundaries that had once been so clear began to blur. Claire started spending more time alone with Marcus, scheduling private, counseling sessions, under the pretense of helping him prepare for life after prison. The sessions became more personal, more intimate, until eventually, their connection crossed the line. Their relationship became a secret, hidden in the shadows of the jail, a secret that Claire knew could destroy everything she had worked so hard to build. Despite the risks, Claire couldn't stop. The affair became a dangerous escape for her. Marcus made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. He listened to her frustrations, sympathized with her struggles, and treated her like someone special, not just another cog in the law enforcement machine. Meanwhile, the world outside remained oblivious. Claire and Ryan continued to present a united front. They attended community events together, smiling for photos, sharing knowing glances that gave the illusion of a rock-solid marriage. To the public, They were a beacon of strength, a couple that represented everything good about law enforcement. But the truth was far more complicated. Claire was leading a double life, her affair with Marcus hidden behind the same walls that symbolized her duty to the law. She knew the risks, knew that if anyone found out, it would destroy her career, her marriage, and her reputation. But no matter how many times she told herself to end it, she couldn't let go. For Claire, the affair was a reprieve from the pressures of her life, a chance to feel something other than the weight of expectation. For Marcus, it was an opportunity, a chance to manipulate the very system that had locked him away. To everyone else, Claire Turner's life seemed perfect. But the cracks in her picture-perfect world were widening, and it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. Claire thought she could keep her secret life compartmentalized, one world where she was a dedicated sheriff's deputy and loving wife, and another where she sought solace in the arms of Marcus King. At first, it seemed manageable. She convinced herself that she was in control, that no one would ever find out about the forbidden connection she had forged. But secrets like these don't stay hidden for long. Claire's affair with Marcus had quickly spiraled into something more than she could have anticipated. What began as stolen moments during her shifts at the jail soon turned into reckless late-night visits and intimate conversations that revealed too much. Marcus had a way of making her feel understood, but that understanding came at a cost. With every conversation, with every secret rendezvous, Marcus began to exert more influence over Claire. Subtly, he pushed her boundaries, testing how far she would go to protect their relationship. It started small, requests for extra privileges, subtle favors, things that could be explained away as acts of leniency. But the line between favor and manipulation blurred faster than Claire could realize. The relationship that once gave her a sense of freedom now felt like a weight she couldn't escape. Still, Claire clung to the illusion that she could keep her two lives separate. She told herself that no one would suspect her. After all, who would dare question the dedicated deputy with the spotless record? But the cracks in her facade began to show, and they widened the day her husband, Ryan, stumbled across the secret she had fought so hard to hide. It was an ordinary evening when Ryan, ever the meticulous detective, decided to back up their shared computer files. He wasn't searching for anything in particular, just routine maintenance. But what he found was anything but routine. Buried in a folder Claire had forgotten to delete was a recording. At first, Ryan wasn't sure what it was. He assumed it was work-related, maybe a training session or a recorded interview. But when he pressed play, the truth hit him like a freight train. The explicit footage left no room for doubt. There was his wife, Claire, in a compromising encounter with Marcus King. The recording was undeniable, a betrayal not only of their marriage but of everything they had built together. Ryan's world came crashing down. The woman he had trusted, the partner he had built his life with, had been hiding a secret so devastating that it threatened to destroy everything. When Claire came home that night, she found Ryan waiting for her. His face was a mix of anger and disbelief as he confronted her. "How long?" he demanded, his voice shaking. "How long have you been lying to me?" Claire froze, her mind racing as she realized what he had discovered. She tried to deny it at first, but the evidence was irrefutable. With nowhere to hide, she broke down, confessing to the affair but pleading with Ryan to understand. But there was no understanding to be found. Ryan, enraged and betrayed, threatened to report her to the sheriff's office, to expose her for the liar she had become. "Do you even realize what you've done? You've thrown away your career, your reputation. Our marriage," he shouted. Claire begged him to keep quiet. She promised it was over, that she would end things with Marcus, that no one else had to know. But Ryan wasn't interested in promises. For him, the damage was done. The weight of the affair, Ryan's ultimatum, and the looming threat of public disgrace bore down on Claire like an avalanche. She could feel her carefully constructed life crumbling beneath her feet. The thought of losing everything, her career, her marriage, her standing in the community, was unbearable. Desperation clawed at her, leaving her grasping for a way out. As the days passed, the walls began to close in on Claire Turner, and the decisions she would make next would only deepen the tragedy that was to come. Claire Turner's once orderly life was unraveling faster than she could manage. With Ryan threatening to expose her affair and Marcus holding the power to destroy her career and reputation, the walls of her double life were closing in. The guilt and fear gnawed at her relentlessly. Every glance from her colleagues felt like suspicion, every whispered conversation felt like it was about her. She couldn't see a way out. But Claire was determined to protect herself, no matter the cost. Her desperation turned to Marcus. The man who had once made her feel alive now represented everything she stood to lose. She began to view him not as a lover but as a liability, a threat that had to be neutralized. Claire's mind raced with possibilities, searching for a solution that would silence Marcus without implicating her in the process. The idea of orchestrating a confrontation came to her as a last resort. Marcus had made enemies in the jail, his charm often rubbing others the wrong way, his slick confidence breeding resentment. It wouldn't take much to push someone over the edge. If she could set the stage for an altercation and ensure Marcus didn't walk away from it, she could eliminate her problem and pass it off as a tragic accident. Claire began laying the groundwork, manipulating the environment with the precision of someone who had spent years understanding how the system worked. She whispered to an inmate she knew had a grudge against Marcus, planting the idea that Marcus had disrespected him. She strategically adjusted schedules to ensure they would cross paths in an unmonitored section of the jail. Every detail was planned, every piece of the puzzle falling into place. The day of the confrontation, Claire watched from a distance as her plan unfolded. Marcus, confident as ever, exchanged words with the other inmate, unaware of the trap that had been set. What began as a verbal argument quickly escalated into physical violence. Claire's pulse raced as she listened to the shouts and scuffling echoing down the corridor. But things quickly spiraled out of control. The confrontation grew more violent than she had anticipated. Other inmates joined in the chaos, and the situation descended into a brutal melee. Claire froze, realizing the fight was no longer something she could control. By the time the guards broke it up, Marcus was lying motionless on the ground, blood pooling around him. He was rushed to the infirmary, but it was too late. Marcus King was pronounced dead. Claire felt a mix of relief and dread. Her problem was gone, but the fallout was only beginning. To protect herself, Claire staged the incident as an unpreventable tragedy. In her report, she claimed the fight had erupted without warning and that she had followed all proper procedures to intervene. She painted Marcus as the instigator, hoping to shift any blame away from herself. But subtle inconsistencies in her story began to emerge. Colleagues noted that Claire had been unusually involved in the shifts leading up to the incident, altering schedules and interacting with inmates she normally wouldn't have. Surveillance footage revealed her proximity to the scene just before the fight broke out, raising questions about her role in the incident. The cracks in Claire's cover story grew wider with each passing day. The violent death of an inmate was no small matter, and the investigation that followed would soon uncover a web of lies, manipulation, and betrayal far darker than anyone could have imagined. Ryan Turner had every reason to walk away. Betrayed by the woman he loved, he could have let Claire's unraveling life collapse on its own. But he was a detective through and through, and something about Marcus King's sudden death didn't sit right with him. It wasn't just the betrayal of his wife's affair, it was the sense that there was more to the story, something darker. In the days following Marcus's death, Ryan found himself poring over the details of the case. Officially, the incident was being treated as a violent altercation between inmates, but Ryan noticed irregularities in the reports. Claire had been uncharacteristically involved in the shifts leading up to the fight, altering schedules and spending more time in areas of the jail she usually avoided. Ryan couldn't ignore the red flags. Despite his personal pain, he began piecing together the events leading to Marcus's death. He accessed Claire's phone records and discovered messages between her and Marcus, coded but unmistakably intimate. The messages hinted at their relationship but also revealed rising tensions between them. In one exchange, Marcus implied that he could no longer keep quiet, a veiled threat that now took on chilling significance. Ryan's suspicions deepened when he reviewed surveillance footage from the jail. The cameras hadn't captured the fatal fight in full, but earlier footage showed Claire lingering near Marcus's cell and speaking briefly with another inmate, the very one who had initiated the attack. Ryan knew Claire well enough to recognize her subtle gestures, the way she leaned in to speak without drawing attention. It was clear she had orchestrated something. Fueled by equal parts betrayal and a commitment to justice, Ryan took his findings to the authorities. As the investigation widened, more damning evidence came to light. Interviews with inmates revealed whispers of favoritism and private counseling sessions between Claire and Marcus. Some of the inmates even hinted that Claire had promised favors to keep them silent. The final nail in Claire's coffin came when investigators uncovered an altered shift schedule and a series of reports she had filed, all designed to place her in the right position to manipulate the confrontation. It was clear that Marcus's death wasn't an accident, it was the result of a calculated plan. The community was stunned when Claire Turner, the beloved deputy with an impeccable record, was arrested at her home. News cameras captured the moment, her face a mixture of defiance and despair as she was led away in handcuffs. The charges against her were serious: conspiracy to commit murder, misconduct, and tampering with official records. The woman who had once been a symbol of integrity was now the center of a scandal that rocked the town to its core. For Ryan, the arrest was bittersweet. The woman he had loved was gone, replaced by someone he could no longer recognize. As he watched her being taken away, he couldn't help but wonder how everything had gone so wrong. The town, too, struggled to reconcile the Claire they thought they knew with the one revealed in the investigation. How could someone so trusted and admired fall so far? The answers would unfold in the courtroom, but for Claire Turner, the fight for her freedom, and her reputation, was only beginning. The trial of Claire Turner captured the nation's attention, turning a local scandal into a sensational courtroom drama. The story of the respected deputy who had fallen from grace, tangled in a web of betrayal, murder, and deceit, played out like a tragic spectacle. Cameras surrounded the courthouse daily, reporters filed constant updates, and the public was glued to every twist and turn. Inside the courtroom, the prosecution wasted no time painting Claire as a woman who had abused her authority and plotted to kill to protect her secrets. They presented damning evidence: surveillance footage of Claire near Marcus's cell, altered schedules that conveniently set up the fatal confrontation, and intimate messages exchanged between Claire and Marcus. The messages revealed not only the affair but also mounting tensions, with Marcus hinting he would no longer remain silent. But it was Ryan Turner's testimony that delivered the most devastating blow. He recounted his discovery of the affair, the confrontation with Claire, and his growing suspicion of her involvement in Marcus's death. The jury hung on every word as Ryan described a woman he no longer recognized, one whose desperation led her to cross every line. The defense sought to offer a different perspective. They portrayed Claire as a victim of Marcus's manipulation, a woman caught in a complex and emotionally fraught situation. They argued that Marcus had charmed and pressured Claire, exploiting her vulnerabilities and threatening to destroy her life when she tried to step away. They claimed the fatal fight was not premeditated but a tragic series of events spiraling beyond her control. To support their argument, they presented character witnesses who spoke of Claire's dedication to her community and her years of service as a deputy. They painted her as a flawed but fundamentally good person who had made mistakes under immense pressure. Outside the courtroom, the public was deeply divided. Some saw Claire as a predator who abused her power and orchestrated a cold-blooded murder. Others sympathized with her, believing she had been driven to desperation by a toxic combination of guilt, fear, and manipulation. The trial also raised broader questions about ethics and power dynamics within the prison system. Did Marcus hold undue influence over Claire, or was she in complete control of her actions? The jury deliberated for days, weighing the evidence and arguments. When the verdict was finally read, the room fell silent. Claire Turner was found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and misconduct. The once respected deputy, now a convicted criminal, stood stoic as the weight of her actions came crashing down. The sentencing hearing would determine how many years Claire would spend behind bars, but the damage to her life and reputation was already irreparable. The town, still reeling from the betrayal, struggled to reconcile the Claire they thought they knew with the one revealed in court. For Ryan, the verdict offered no solace. The woman he had built a life with was gone, replaced by someone he couldn't understand. For the community, Claire's trial became a sobering reminder of how quickly trust can be shattered and how even the most admired figures can hide dark secrets. Her story would linger for years, not just as a tale of crime and punishment, but as a painful lesson in the devastating cost of betrayal and desperation. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the verdict. Claire Turner, once a respected deputy and pillar of her community, was found guilty of second-degree murder and obstruction of justice. The weight of the words seemed to echo in the room, solidifying the end of her career, her marriage, and her carefully constructed life. The jury had deliberated for days, weighing the evidence and the defense's portrayal of Claire as a desperate woman manipulated by circumstances. But in the end, the facts spoke louder than her pleas for leniency. When sentencing day arrived, Claire stood before the court, her once confident demeanor replaced by a stoic resignation. The judge acknowledged her years of service but emphasized the gravity of her actions. The sentence, 25 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 15, was a harsh but fitting conclusion to the tragic saga. As Claire was led away in handcuffs, the public's faith in their justice system was reaffirmed, but the wounds her betrayal had left on the community would take far longer to heal. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for comments, and protesters held signs expressing both outrage and sympathy. The community was divided. Some saw Claire's sentence as justice served, a necessary punishment for her actions. Others, however, viewed her as a victim of the pressures and temptations of a flawed system. Conversations about the ethical boundaries in law enforcement and the dynamics of power between officers and inmates dominated local discussions for weeks. Ryan Turner, still reeling from the betrayal and heartbreak, chose to channel his pain into purpose. Leaving his position as a detective, he became a vocal advocate for integrity and accountability in law enforcement. Speaking at conferences and community events, Ryan shared his story as a cautionary tale, emphasizing the importance of ethical behavior and the dangers of unchecked authority. For the town, the fallout extended beyond the courtroom. Trust in the local sheriff's office was deeply shaken, prompting an internal review of procedures and ethics training. Claire's case became a wake-up call, a reminder that even the most trusted individuals can falter under pressure and temptation. As the years passed, Claire's name became a symbol of both tragedy and betrayal. Her story was retold in true crime documentaries and local lore, serving as a painful reminder of how quickly a life can unravel. For those closest to her, the scars ran deep, but they found solace in the lessons learned and the changes her case inspired. In the end, Claire Turner's downfall was more than just a personal tragedy, it was a moment of reckoning for an entire community. The betrayal of trust, the weight of secrets, and the devastating consequences of desperation left an indelible mark on everyone involved. And while the town slowly began to rebuild its faith in its leaders, the memory of Claire's choices served as a somber reminder of the fine line between honor and disgrace. This tragic story exposes the devastating consequences of betrayal, secrets, and unchecked desperation. Claire Turner's rise and fall is a stark reminder of how even the most admired and respected individuals can succumb to their flaws, leading to catastrophic results. It's a tale of trust shattered, lives destroyed, and a community left grappling with the aftermath of choices made in fear and desperation. Claire's decisions didn't just ruin her own life, they sent shockwaves through her family, her colleagues, and the people who once looked up to her as a symbol of integrity. Could this tragedy have been avoided? Was there a moment where Claire could have chosen a different path? And perhaps the larger question, How can law enforcement agencies better address ethical breaches to prevent such devastating outcomes in the future? The story of Claire Turner challenges us to reflect on the power of accountability and the importance of confronting our mistakes before they spiral out of control. If this story left you speechless, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Inspector Stan for more chilling tales of love, lies, and betrayal. Stories that remind us of the darkest corners of human nature and the lessons we must learn to prevent history from repeating itself.